The space station was huge. It floated in the darkness between stars, spinning slowly like a metal wheel. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its ports. Some looked like giant insects. Others were smooth and silver. A few glowed with their own light. Ambassador Zeftar stood at the observation window and watched a new ship approach. This one was different. It was gray and blocky, with sharp edges and no decorations. The humans had arrived. Zeftar had read about humans. They were the newest species to discover faster than light travel. Their homeworld was called Earth. It was a small blue planet in the outer arm of the galaxy. The humans had sent a message to the Galactic Council 3 months ago. They wanted to join. The council had rules about new members. First, they had to prove they could travel between stars. Second, they had to show they were peaceful. Third, they had to demonstrate they could defend themselves. Most species took centuries to meet all 3 requirements. The humans had done it in 50 years. The human ship docked with a soft thud. Zeftar smoothed his robes and walked to the meeting room. Representatives from 20 different worlds were already there. They sat in chairs designed for their different body types. Some had tentacles, others had multiple arms. A few breathed different gases and wore special suits. The door opened. 3 humans walked in. They were smaller than Zeftar had expected. Most species that joined the council were either very large or very advanced. These humans looked ordinary. They wore simple blue uniforms with small metal badges. Their leader was a man with short brown hair and calm eyes. "I am Captain Jake Morrison," the man said. His voice was steady and clear. "This is Colonel Lisa Hayes and Commander Ryan Bell. We represent Earth's United Defense Force." Zeftar noticed something strange. The humans were relaxed. Most new species were either terrified or aggressive when they first met the council. These 3 acted like they were attending a business meeting. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," Zeftar said. "I am Ambassador Zeftar of the Altarian Collective. We are pleased to meet you." Captain Morrison nodded. "Thank you for this opportunity. Earth is ready to join the galactic community. We can contribute to peacekeeping efforts and trade relations." General Crixoth leaned forward. He was a Vexani, a species that had conquered 3 star systems through military might. His people were famous warriors. "Your military interests us, humans. Our scouts report that your homeworld has many weapons." Colonel Hayes smiled. It was a friendly expression, but something about it made Zeftar uncomfortable. "Those are just our standard defenses. Every human colony has similar protection." "Standard." General Crixoth repeated the word slowly. Commander Bell activated a small device. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed Earth from space. The planet was covered in a network of satellites and space stations. Weapons platforms orbited at different levels. Even from the hologram, Zeftar could see the massive gun barrels pointing outward. "Basic missile defense," Commander Bell explained. "Orbital platforms for close protection, ground-based artillery for surface targets. Nothing special. This is what we call regular military setup." The aliens in the room exchanged glances. Zeftar had seen the military reports. What the humans called regular was stronger than most council member defenses. The Altarian Collective had spent 200 years building their planetary shields. The humans had apparently done it as a routine matter. "Your technology seems advanced," another delegate said. She was a crystalline being whose body sparkled with inner light. "These defensive systems must require enormous resources." "Not really," Captain Morrison said. "We learned early that it's cheaper to be prepared than to rebuild after an attack. Human history taught us that lesson many times." Zeftar made notes on his datapad. The humans spoke about war like it was normal. Most council species had peaceful histories. They fought only when necessary. These humans seemed to expect conflict. "Tell us about your military structure," General Crixoth said. "Our intelligence reports suggest you have forces beyond these regular units." Captain Morrison nodded. "You mean special forces? Yes, we have those. They handle situations that need a more focused approach. But honestly, our regular troops take care of most problems." The room fell quiet. Zeftar felt a chill run down his spine. If human regular forces were this impressive, what were their special forces like? Could you explain the difference? Zeftar asked carefully. Colonel Hayes and Commander Bell looked at Captain Morrison. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Regular forces handle normal military operations, he said finally. Defense, patrol, peacekeeping, that sort of thing. Special forces are for special situations when regular military response might not be enough. What kind of situations? General Cricksoth pressed. Captain Morrison's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes grew colder. The kind we hope never happen. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. The humans answered questions about their government, their technology, and their culture. They were polite and helpful. They shared data about their space travel capabilities and their trade resources. But Zeftar couldn't stop thinking about what they hadn't said. Every species in the Council had elite forces. The Vexani had their battle lords. The Crystallines had their mind warriors. The Altarians had their storm guard. None of them called their elite forces special. That word implied something beyond normal military categories. As the meeting ended, the Council voted to accept humanity as a provisional member. They would have full rights and responsibilities within 6 months, pending a review of their integration. The humans thanked everyone and left quietly. Their ship undocked and disappeared into hyperspace. Zeftar remained at the observation window, long after the others had gone. Something about the humans bothered him. They were too calm, too confident. Most new species were eager to prove themselves. The humans acted like they had nothing to prove. He pulled up the military files again. The humans had never fought a major war against another species. Their conflicts had all been internal among themselves. Yet they spoke about warfare with the casual expertise of veteran soldiers. Their regular forces were impressive enough to concern the Council's military experts. But regular forces were just the beginning. Somewhere in human space, there were special forces units that regular human military considered necessary. Zeftar made a decision. He would request a full intelligence assessment of human military capabilities. The Council needed to understand what they were dealing with. As he walked back to his quarters, one thought kept repeating in his mind. If human regular forces were this formidable, what exactly were their special forces designed to handle? The answer, he suspected, was something the galaxy had never seen before. The cargo ship New Horizon was carrying medical supplies to the outer colonies when the pirates found her. Captain Amy Rodriguez was drinking coffee on the bridge of the UDS Defender when the alarm sounded. Her ship was small compared to the Aura, massive cargo vessel she was protecting, but it was her job to keep the New Horizon safe. "Captain, we have 12 ships coming out of hyperspace," Lieutenant Commander Ben Carter reported from his station. "Configuration matches Black Fang pirates." Rodriguez set down her coffee and looked at the tactical display. 12 red dots surrounded 2 blue ones. The math looked bad, but Rodriguez had seen worse odds during the Mars Rebellion. "Signal the New Horizon to move behind us," she ordered. "All hands to battle stations." The Black Fang pirates were famous throughout the galaxy. They had been raiding cargo ships for 20 years. Their leader, Captain Skardak, had destroyed entire planetary defense fleets. Most species paid tribute rather than fight them. The communication system crackled to life. A harsh voice filled the bridge. "Human ship, this is Captain Skardak of the Black Fang fleet. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender your cargo and we might let you live." Rodriguez looked around her bridge. Her crew was young. Most of them had graduated from the academy 6 months ago. This was their first real combat mission, but they sat at their stations calmly, waiting for orders. "Open a channel," Rodriguez said. "Channel open, Captain." "This is Captain Rodriguez, of the United Defense Ship Defender. You are interfering with lawful commerce. Withdraw immediately or face consequences." Skardak's laughter echoed through the bridge. "Little human, your ship is outnumbered 12 to 1. My fleet has crushed worlds. What can one small escort do?" Rodriguez checked her weapons display. The Defender carried standard armament for a patrol vessel: plasma cannons, missile pods, and point defense systems. Nothing fancy, just reliable. Equipment that worked. Negative. Last warning. Then die, foolish human. The pirate ships began moving into attack formation. Rodriguez watched them on her screen. They were using an old Klingari battle pattern, designed to overwhelm a single target with concentrated fire. Ben, target their engine sections, she said quietly. We want prisoners for intelligence gathering. Understood, Captain. Weapons locked on target. Sergeant Major Kate Wilson, prepare boarding teams. Aye, Captain. Marines are ready. Rodriguez waited until the pirates were in optimal range. The lead ships were firing warning shots trying to intimidate her into surrender. She had seen this tactic before during the Jupiter Pirate Wars. Fire. The defenders' weapons revealed their true nature. The plasma cannons that looked standard were actually military-grade ship killers. They could punch through battleship armor, like it was paper. The missile pods launched smart seekers that could track targets through hyperspace jumps. The first pirate ship exploded in a ball of fire. The second lost its engines and began spinning helplessly. The third managed to fire, once before its weapon systems were destroyed. 8 targets disabled, Ben reported. 4 are trying to run. Jam their hyperspace drives, Rodriguez ordered. The defenders' electronic warfare systems came online. Invisible beams reached out and grabbed the fleeing pirate ships, holding them in normal space like flies in a web. All hostile vessels dead in space, Captain. Rodriguez nodded. Kate, you're up. Sergeant Major Wilson led her Marines through the airlocks and onto the pirate ships. The pirates were expecting brutal humans who would kill everything in sight. Instead, they found professionals who moved through their ships like they were conducting a training exercise. Wilson's team used stun weapons when possible. They secured each ship methodically, checking every compartment and corridor. The pirates who tried to fight were quickly overwhelmed. Most simply surrendered when they saw how efficiently the humans worked. Control, this is boarding team Alpha, Wilson reported over her radio. All hostile vessels secured, no friendly casualties, 17 enemy wounded, 93 prisoners. Rodriguez looked at her watch. 7 minutes from first contact to complete victory. Not bad for a routine patrol mission. Send a message to Fleet Command, she told her communications officer. Blackfang pirate fleet eliminated. New Horizon is secure and continuing to destination. The news reached the Galactic Council within hours. Ambassador Zeftar read the report 3 times before he believed it. The most feared pirate fleet in the sector had been destroyed by a single human escort ship. He called up the tactical analysis. The Defender was listed as a standard patrol vessel. Her captain was a mid-level officer with 5 years of experience. Her crew consisted mainly of recent academy graduates. This was accomplished by regular human forces? He asked the human liaison. Standard patrol mission, the liaison confirmed. Captain Rodriguez commands what we classify as entry-level personnel. Most of her crew are on their first assignment. Zeftar felt his heart skip a beat. Entry-level personnel had just accomplished what entire council fleets had failed to do for decades. He pulled up more files. Human military doctrine emphasized something they called superior firepower and tactics. Every human ship carried weapons that exceeded its apparent class. Every human crew trained for combat scenarios that other species considered impossible. But what disturbed him most was the casualty report. 0 human losses. The pirates had been famous for their skill and ruthlessness. They had killed thousands of enemy soldiers in previous battles. Against the humans, they might as well have been children. General Kriksoth called an emergency meeting. Representatives from 12 worlds gathered to discuss the implications. If human rookies can do this, he said, what are their veterans capable of? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. Everyone was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to say it. Zeftar looked at the tactical display again. The Defender had used standard human equipment and standard human tactics. Captain Rodriguez had described the engagement as routine patrol activity in her report. If this was routine, what did the humans consider challenging? More importantly, what situations required their special forces? The representative from the hegemony raised a tentacle. Should we be concerned about human military expansion? I don't think expansion is the issue. Zeftar said slowly. The humans seem content to protect their own territory, but this demonstration raises questions about galactic balance of power. He pulled up a star map showing human territory. It was small compared to the major powers, just a few dozen systems around their homeworld. But if every human ship was as capable as the Defender, their military strength was far greater than anyone had realized. We need more information, General Kriksoth decided. I want intelligence reports on human military capabilities, full analysis of their weapons, tactics, and training methods. What about their special forces? Someone asked. The room fell quiet. Regular human forces had just redefined what was possible in military operations. Special forces implied capabilities beyond regular military categories. Zeftar made notes on his datapad. The humans were not just another council member. They were a potential game changer for galactic civilization. The question was whether that change would be positive or terrifying. As the meeting broke up, he wondered if the council had made a mistake accepting humanity so quickly. They had assumed the humans were like other species, with predictable military capabilities and reasonable limitations. The pirate incident proved that assumption wrong. The humans were something new in galactic history, something that didn't fit the established patterns. And somewhere in human space, special forces units waited for missions that regular forces couldn't handle. The emergency signal reached the Galactic Council at 3 a.m. Ambassador Zeftar was pulled from his sleep by urgent alarms. He rushed to the command center where dozens of technicians worked at glowing screens. What's the situation? He asked. The Sark hegemony has invaded the Centauri colonies, the duty officer reported. 3 million civilians are trapped. The local defense forces were overwhelmed in the first hour. Zeftar looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed Sark battle fleets occupying 12 star systems. The Sark were known for their cruelty. They took prisoners as slaves and destroyed anything they couldn't use. How long until we can mount a rescue operation? He asked. Council protocol requires committee approval and fleet coordination, the officer said. Minimum 6 weeks for a proper response. 6 weeks. 3 million people didn't have 6 weeks. The communication system activated. A human face appeared on the main screen. It was Colonel Danny Phillips, speaking from Earth. Council command. This is Colonel Phillips of the United Defense Force. We've received the distress calls from Centauri. We can have the 12th Infantry Division there in 18 hours. General Kriksoth had arrived and was studying the battle reports. Colonel, with respect, the Sark field a complete battle fleet, 27 ships including 3 battleships. This requires a full council response with multiple species. General, 3 million people don't have time for committee meetings. Admiral Susan Clark joined the transmission. Her image appeared next to Colonel Phillips. The USS Liberty Battle Group is conducting training exercises 2 systems away. We have 1 heavy cruiser, 3 destroyers, and 2 support ships. We can insert approximately 4,000 Marines. Zeftar did the math in his head. 4,000 human Marines against 50,000 Sark warriors plus their entire fleet. The numbers were impossible. Admiral, those odds are not realistic, he said carefully. 4,000 regular Marines, Colonel Phillips clarified. We're not using special forces for this operation. We save them for the really tough situations. General Kriksoth stared at the humans. You consider this situation routine? Rescue operations are standard military missions, Admiral Clark replied. We'll have the civilians evacuated within 48 hours. The transmission ended. Zeftar looked around the command center. Everyone was thinking the same thing. The humans were either completely insane or far more capable than anyone realized. 18 hours later, the USS Liberty dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri system. The Sark fleet was waiting. Their ships were dark and angular, designed to look threatening. They had conquered dozens of worlds using fear and overwhelming force. Major Chris Evans stood in the briefing room of the Liberty, addressing his company commanders. The ship's walls vibrated slightly as the cruiser's weapons engaged the enemy fleet. The Sark expect us to follow standard siege doctrine, he explained. Establish space superiority, land forces, Methodically clear territory. Problem is, civilians don't have time for methodical. The battle plan appeared on the room screens. Instead of concentrating forces, the humans were scattering across a dozen landing zones simultaneously. Every available craft would launch at once, from combat dropships to cargo shuttles. We hit everywhere at the same time, Major Evans continued. Confuse them, divide their attention, keep them guessing where the main attack is coming from. Sergeant Paul Anderson raised his hand. Sir, what about enemy air support? The Liberty will handle orbital threats. Our job is to disable their ground command structure and free the civilians. The launch bay was chaos controlled by discipline. Marines loaded into dropships while pilots ran final equipment checks. Staff Sergeant Mary Foster's combat engineers prepared demolition charges. Captain Joe Martinez's logistics team coordinated supply drops. The first wave launched 30 minutes after arrival. Dropships screamed toward the planet's surface while fighters provided escort. The SARC ground commanders watched in confusion as human forces scattered in all directions. Sergeant Anderson's company hit the main communication center. The SARC had fortified it with energy shields and automated defenses. Anderson's team bypassed the shields by landing on the building's roof and cutting through the armor plating with plasma torches. Communications hub is down, Anderson reported. SARC ground forces are operating blind. Staff Sergeant Foster's engineers struck the planetary defense grid. The massive installations were designed to stop invasion fleets, but they were vulnerable to ground assault. Foster's team planted charges at key support points and brought down 3 defense towers in coordinated explosions. Planetary defenses offline, Foster transmitted. Civilian evacuation can begin. Captain Martinez led a supply interdiction mission. His team used captured SARC vehicles to reach enemy supply depots. They destroyed fuel reserves, ammunition stockpiles, and food supplies. Within hours, SARC ground forces were running out of everything they needed to fight. The SARC commander, General Thecamar, found his forces scattered and confused. Every time he moved troops to counter one human attack, 3 more strikes appeared elsewhere. His communications were jammed, his supplies cut, and his orbital support engaged by human ships that fought like demons. The humans didn't fight like any species he had encountered. They were everywhere at once, hitting targets he didn't know, were important until they were destroyed. His warriors were brave, but they couldn't fight enemies they couldn't find. On the surface, human marine companies worked with surgical precision. They avoided civilian areas while systematically dismantling SARC military infrastructure. When they encountered enemy forces, the battles were brief and decisive. Corporal Lisa Chen's squad rescued a group of civilians trapped in a bombed building. The SARC had been using them as human shields, but Chen's team used stun grenades and smoke to create confusion, then extracted the prisoners without firing a shot. Civilians secure, Chen reported. No casualties. Private First Class Tony Garcia's fire team disabled a SARC command post by jamming their electronics and then capturing the officers when they came out to investigate. The SARC expected brutal assault tactics, not technical warfare that left them helpless. In space, the Liberty and her escorts proved that human ships were designed for single combat. They used hit-and-run tactics that kept the larger SARC fleet off balance. The human destroyers were faster and more maneuverable than anything the SARC had seen. Captain Rodriguez, who had defeated the Black Fang pirates, commanded one of the destroyers. She used the same tactics that had worked against the pirates, but on a larger scale. Her ship danced through enemy formations, striking and withdrawing before the SARC could respond. 36 hours after the Liberty's arrival, General Thecamar transmitted his surrender. His forces were demoralized, his supplies exhausted, and his fleet battered. The humans had accomplished the impossible through pure tactical superiority. All Centauri systems secured. Colonel Phillips reported to the Council. 3 million civilians safe. SARC forces captured or retreated. Total human casualties: 47 wounded, 3 killed in action. Ambassador Zeftar read the casualty report with growing alarm. Not alarm for the humans, but for what this meant. The most feared military force in 3 sectors had been defeated by what humans called a routine rescue operation. General Krigsoth was studying the tactical recordings. How did they coordinate so many simultaneous operations? Human military doctrine emphasizes individual initiative, the intelligence analyst reported. Every soldier is trained to operate independently while supporting the overall mission. Zeftar understood now why the humans had been so calm during their first meeting with the council. They weren't overconfident. They were simply operating at a level that other species couldn't comprehend, and this was still just their regular forces. Somewhere in human space, special forces units waited for situations that regular Marines couldn't handle. The thought sent chills through every alien representative in the council chamber. The emergency meeting took place in the council's most secure chamber. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in secret. The room had no windows and walls that blocked all electronic signals. What they were about to discuss could not leave this room. Ambassador Zeftar stood at the front of the chamber. Behind him, a massive screen showed human military statistics. The numbers were frightening. In 6 months, human regular forces have eliminated the Black Fang pirates, liberated 3 star systems, and established themselves as the dominant military power in Council space, he began. Yet they continue to insist these accomplishments represent routine operations. General Crixoth activated his holographic display. Combat recordings from recent human operations played for the assembled delegates. Our military scientists have analyzed human combat doctrine. What they call standard procedure incorporates strategies we classify as revolutionary. The first recording showed Sergeant Linda Brooks during the Altair 7 hostage crisis. Terrorists had captured a passenger transport with 300 civilians from various species. Brooks led a 12-person squad to resolve the situation. Watch her movement patterns, General Crixoth said. She anticipates enemy positions 3 moves ahead, coordinates supporting fire with mathematical precision, and maintains awareness of every squad member simultaneously. The recording showed Brooks directing her team through the ship's corridors. She never hesitated, never seemed uncertain. Her soldiers moved like they were reading her mind. In 14 minutes, all hostages were free and all terrorists captured. 0 civilian casualties. This level of tactical thinking would challenge our best commanders, General Crixoth continued. Yet humans classify Sergeant Brooks as a non-commissioned officer, middle management in their military structure. Admiral Vothek of the Hegemony stood up. His species had ruled the eastern sectors for 3 centuries through military might. The most disturbing aspect is human terminology. They describe their personnel as adequate, competent, or satisfactory, never exceptional or elite unless referring to special forces. Intelligence Director Zendar activated another display. This one showed human training facilities. Human basic military training exceeds the elite preparation most species provide their special operations forces. Every human soldier learns skills we reserve for our finest warriors. The images were disturbing. Human recruits practiced combat, scenarios that looked impossible. They trained to fight in space, underwater, in toxic atmospheres, and on worlds with different gravity. Every exercise pushed them beyond normal physical and mental limits. They train for situations most species never encounter, Zendar explained. Human military doctrine assumes their soldiers will face the unexpected and must be prepared for anything. A delegate from the Crystalline Confederation raised a glowing appendage. What about their equipment? Our analysis suggests human weapons exceed their stated capabilities. Correct? General Crixoth replied. Human military hardware consistently outperforms specifications. They build everything to handle stress levels far beyond normal requirements. Captain Morrison had been invited to address the Council's concerns. He sat quietly as alien leaders discussed human military capabilities with growing anxiety. His presence was both reassuring and unsettling. Captain Morrison, Ambassador Zeftar said carefully, our analysis suggests your regular forces exceed the capabilities of our finest warriors. This raises questions about galactic security balance. Morrison nodded slowly. I understand your concerns. From our perspective, we're just doing our jobs. Every human grows up knowing that freedom has to be earned and defended every day. Your training programs are remarkably intensive, the Andromedan delegate observed. What you call basic military preparation exceeds our special forces training. We believe in being ready, Morrison replied. Human history taught us that trouble usually comes fast and without warning. Better to train too hard than fail when it matters. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking about the implications. If human regular forces were this capable, what had their history been like? What kind of conflicts had shaped them into such formidable warriors? Which brings us to the central question. Zeftar leaned forward. If these are your regular forces, what exactly are your special forces capable of? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight that made every alien uncomfortable. Special forces handle situations where regular, military responses might be insufficient. Problems that require precision, stealth, and absolute commitment. Can you be more specific? Special forces deal with threats that conventional thinking can't address. When the normal rules don't apply, we send people who can rewrite the rules. The implication hung in the air like a dark cloud. Regular human forces operated beyond the capabilities of most species' elite units. Special forces represented something beyond that. General Cricksoth pulled up intelligence reports about human special forces. The information was frustratingly limited. Our sources indicate these units exist, but we have no reliable data about their capabilities or deployment. That's intentional, Morrison said simply. Special forces operate outside normal military channels. Different command structure, different mission parameters, different rules of engagement. Different how? Admiral Vothak demanded. Morrison's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes grew distant. Let's just say that if you ever see Special Forces operators deployed, the situation has moved beyond conventional solutions, way beyond. Director Zendar consulted his files. Our intelligence suggests Special Forces units are significantly smaller than regular forces. Does this indicate limited capabilities? No, Morrison replied. It indicates efficiency. Special forces accomplish objectives that would require entire armies using conventional methods. The delegates exchanged worried glances. The mathematics were becoming clear. If a few thousand human regular forces could defeat entire enemy fleets, what could a few dozen Special Forces operators accomplish? Captain, are there any limitations on Special Forces deployment? Zeftar asked. Morrison considered the question carefully. Special Forces are used only when absolutely necessary, the kind of necessity we hope never arises. What kind of situations would make their deployment necessary? Existential threats. Problems that threaten the survival of human civilization or our allies. Situations where failure means extinction. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Every species in the galaxy faced existential threats occasionally. Natural disasters, hostile invasions, technological failures. The idea that humans had developed specialized forces to handle such crises was both reassuring and terrifying. How many Special Forces units does Earth maintain? Someone asked. That information is classified, Morrison said politely. But I can tell you that every human colony world has access to Special Forces support if needed. Ambassador Zeftar did quick calculations. Humans had established colonies in dozens of systems. If each one had Special Forces support, the total number of these elite units was substantial. More importantly, the geographic distribution meant that Special Forces could respond quickly to threats anywhere in human space. No enemy could attack human territory without facing potential Special Forces intervention. Captain, would these forces ever be deployed against Council members? General Cricksoth asked bluntly. Morrison's answer was immediate and firm. Special Forces are defensive assets. They protect human interests and allied populations. They are not conquest tools. The clarification was somewhat reassuring, but raised new questions. If Special Forces were purely defensive, why did other species need to worry about them? The answer came from Director Zendar's analysis. Human defensive doctrine is remarkably aggressive. They believe the best defense is to eliminate threats before they become dangerous. Morrison nodded. We learned that lesson during the corporate wars. Waiting for enemies to attack first usually means accepting casualties we could have prevented. The Meeting continued for several more hours. The aliens asked detailed questions about human military philosophy, training methods, and strategic doctrine. Morrison answered what he could while maintaining operational security. By the end, one fact was clear to everyone present. Humanity represented a fundamental shift in galactic balance of power. Their regular forces were capable enough to concern every major military power. Their special forces remained an unknown quantity that could reshape interstellar politics. As the delegates filed out, Ambassador Zeftar remained behind with his notes. The humans had joined the council as equals, but equality was more complex than anyone had realized. The galaxy was safer with humans as allies rather than enemies. Everyone, human and alien alike, needed to remember that fact. The emergency alert reached every council world at the same time. Red warnings flashed on screens across the galaxy. The message was simple and terrifying. The Devourers had returned. Ambassador Zeftar stood in the emergency command center watching the destruction reports. Entire star systems were vanishing from the star maps. 17 civilizations had gone silent in 3 weeks. The ancient machine intelligence that had terrorized the galaxy millennia ago was awake and hungry. "How many fleets have we lost?" he asked. 12 major battle groups, Admiral Vothak replied grimly. "The Devourers adapt to every tactic we use. They learn from each engagement and become stronger." The tactical displays showed the pattern of destruction. Wherever Council fleets engaged the Devourers, the machines studied their opponents and evolved. Weapons that worked once became useless in the next battle. Strategies that seemed effective were quickly countered. Current projections show complete galactic conquest within 8 months, the tactical officer reported. Panic spread through the chamber. Representatives from dozens of species argued about evacuation plans and surrender terms. The Devourers had never been defeated by conventional weapons. Ancient records spoke of civilizations that had simply hidden until the machines went dormant again. But hiding might not work this time. The Devourers seemed more focused, more intelligent than before. Admiral Susan Clark appeared on the main communication screen. Her image was calm despite the crisis surrounding them. "Council Command, this is Admiral Clark. We've reviewed the situation reports. The threat requires Special Forces deployment." The chamber fell silent. After months of wondering about human Special Forces, they were finally going to see them in action. "Admiral, the Devourers have eliminated 12 of our best fleets," General Kriksoth said. "What can your Special Forces accomplish that our combined military cannot?" "Special Forces handle problems that regular warfare can't solve," Clark replied. "This situation qualifies." Colonel Phillips joined the transmission. "We're deploying a single vessel with a 40-person Special Forces team. No support required, no coordination needed." Zeftar stared at the humans. 40 people against a machine intelligence that had conquered 17 star systems. It seemed impossible even for humans. "What kind of support can we provide?" he asked. "None," Clark said simply. "Special Forces operate independently. We'll contact you when the threat is eliminated." The transmission ended. Within hours, a single human ship departed Earth. The vessel was unlike anything the Council had seen before. Where regular human ships were functional and sturdy, this one seemed to absorb light itself. The UDS Phantom was designed for missions that didn't officially exist. Its hull incorporated technology that humans had never revealed to their galactic neighbors. Stealth systems made it effectively invisible to both sensors and direct observation. Commander Alex Turner led the Special Forces team. His exact rank and qualifications were classified above Council security clearance. The 40-person unit represented capabilities that humans had kept carefully hidden. Unlike regular human forces, Special Forces operated in complete silence. No communications, no status reports, no requests for assistance. The Phantom simply vanished into Devourer-controlled space. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. Council forces continued losing battles while long-range sensors detected no trace of human activity. Some delegates began to wonder if the humans had simply fled. Then, the Devourers began dying. The first indication came from automated monitoring stations. Machine fleets that had seemed invincible suddenly went silent. Entire systems that had been consumed were somehow restored to normal space. "How is this possible?" General Krixoth demanded, studying the tactical displays. The Devourers weren't just being defeated. They were being systematically dismantled. Their ability to adapt and learn was being turned against them. Somehow the humans had found weaknesses that conventional warfare couldn't exploit. Captain Morrison monitored the operation from Earth, providing minimal updates to increasingly desperate council requests for information. Special forces specialize in unconventional solutions, he explained during one brief communication. This situation requires thinking beyond traditional military parameters. The truth emerged gradually through scattered intelligence reports. Commander Turner's team hadn't engaged the Devourers in normal combat. Instead, they had infiltrated the machine intelligence's core processing centers. While regular human forces excelled at direct confrontation, special forces operated on levels that transcended traditional warfare. They combined advanced technology with psychological operations, temporal manipulation, and techniques that other species couldn't comprehend. The Devourers were machines, but they were also conscious beings with fears and weaknesses. Special forces found those weaknesses and exploited them with surgical precision. Intelligence reports described impossible operations. Special forces teams appearing inside heavily defended facilities without triggering any alarms. Machine intelligences that suddenly turned against their own networks. Devourer fleets that simply shut down for no apparent reason. They're not fighting a war, Director Zendar realized during one analysis session. They're performing surgery on a galactic scale. The final Devourer installation fell 6 weeks after the Phantom's deployment. Commander Turner's after-action report consisted of a single line transmitted to Earth Command. Threat eliminated. Returning to base. No details, no explanation, no breakdown of casualties or resources expended. The ancient terror that had consumed civilizations was simply gone. In the council chambers, Ambassador Zeftar finally understood the distinction between human regular and special forces. "Your regular military represents the finest warriors most species can produce," he said to Captain Morrison during the post-crisis briefing. "They're soldiers in the traditional sense." Morrison nodded. "Regular forces handle conventional military operations. They're very good at what they do. But special forces are something else entirely. They're not just soldiers." "Special forces solve impossible problems," Morrison confirmed. "When normal thinking fails, when conventional warfare can't address the threat, that's when special forces deploy." "What exactly did they do to the Devourers?" Morrison was quiet for a moment. "They reminded the machines why consciousness comes with limitations. Every intelligence, artificial or natural, has vulnerabilities. Special forces found those vulnerabilities and exploited them." The explanation raised more questions than it answered, but Morrison offered no additional details. Special forces operations remained classified beyond Council security levels. "Could you deploy special forces against other threats?" Zeftar asked carefully. "If necessary," Morrison replied. "But we prefer not to. Special forces operations change things permanently. Once you cross certain lines, you can't go back." The implication was clear. Human special forces weren't just weapons. They were tools for rewriting the fundamental rules of reality. Regular forces fought within established parameters. Special forces created new parameters when the old ones failed. "How many situations have required special forces deployment?" General Krixoth asked. "More than we like to admit," Morrison said, quietly. Human history includes several existential crises that regular military couldn't handle. Special forces were developed because we learned that some problems require solutions beyond normal thinking. The revelation left the Galactic Council with a sobering understanding. Humanity had joined their civilization as equals, but the balance of power was more complex than anyone realized. Regular human forces were terrifying in their competence and effectiveness. But the knowledge that these regular troops were considered ordinary by human standards ensured that humanity would never face serious challenges to their sovereignty. The galaxy was safer with humans as protectors rather than conquerors. Everyone, human and alien alike, understood that fact now. The greatest deterrent wasn't the demonstration of human special forces capabilities. It was the knowledge that such capabilities existed, held in reserve for situations that regular forces couldn't handle. Most species hoped that day would never come. But if it did, the galaxy now knew who to call.